Coming up next is the Dr. Kim Taylor Show. Here's your chance to talk about what matters to you. Although you'll receive helpful advice from Dr. Kim, remember this is not to be construed as any form of psychotherapy, diagnosis or treatment, and cannot replace a therapeutic relationship with a mental health professional. You can reach Dr. Kim by calling 564-1290 or 866-564-1290. You can also listen live on the internet at drkimtaylorshow.com. Now, here's Dr. Kim.
It's that time of year when parents are just celebrating the graduation of their kids from high school. And then they have to turn right around and prepare for sending them off to college. This is also the time of year that I get a lot of phone calls as the anxiety level from parents and students starts to escalate. You know, kids are dealing with their own fear of being on their own away from home, and parents are trying to figure out if their kids are ready to be on their own. So it's always the time of year that there's a lot of mixed feelings going on, and as kids are trying to move away, parents are wondering whether they can let go. It's what we call the empty nest syndrome, because there are going to be a whole bunch of mixed feelings on the part of everyone involved. I often look at this and think, well, who needs more help? Is it the parent or the child? And what I would tell you is that I think the truth is that it does lie somewhere in the middle, because everybody is needing to make certain adjustments to accommodate the changing needs of the family members, as well as what the changing dynamics are going to be around the family members. Whenever I talk about this or think about this, I certainly remember vividly, as if it was yesterday, what happened when our daughter went away. Because there was a certain wrenching away with feeling that sense of loss and knowing that things were never going to be the same, that she was never going to be under our roof in the same way. But there was also a sense of excitement, and there was anticipation for the beginning of what was going to be a new phase of life for her and a new beginning away from home. But what I can tell you from going through this and actually working with others is that the range of feelings can be from one end of the spectrum to the other. And what I find interesting is that while kids are somewhat afraid to leave, they're also excited. So they're pushing against their parents during this last summer that they have at home, and parents are scratching their head thinking, oh my God, did I teach my child enough? Are they responsible? Can they take care of themselves? What if this happens? What if that comes up? So everybody is on edge. So what we're going to talk about today is how can parents prepare, and what are some of the tips for helping you get through this transition easier. My guest today is Dr. Nancy Leffert, and she's here to share some tips about how to prepare and how to cope when your child leaves home. She has some funny stories to go along with that. So stay tuned with me. I'll be right back with my guest. If you'd like to call in, just call us at 805-564-1290 or email me at drkim@drkimtaylorshow.com. I'll be right back after the break. I'm Dr. Kim, and you're listening to KZSB AM 1290.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
So welcome back to the program. I am here with a guest that I'm very pleased to have. It's Dr. Nancy Leffert. She's the president of Antioch, and she's also a developmental child psychologist as well as a parent. And we are talking about the empty nest syndrome and what it's like for parents and children to go through that process when the children leave home, because it is a wrenching experience, or it can be for some people. So welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah. Let's start out by just talking about what exactly is the empty nest syndrome, and is it as bad as some people would think?
Well, you know, I have to tell you, this morning while I was getting ready to go to work, I was watching a nature show that had these birds, you know, and guess what? The fledglings were leaving the nest, going on their first flight. That's where the term comes from, is empty nest, when those are the mother and father birds are left on their own when the fledgling has taken his or her first flight. So it is the name we call when children are actually leaving home, whether it is that they're going to college or going on to take other adult roles in life. And it can be as bad as it sounds.
Yes.
And it also doesn't have to be as bad as it sounds. There's really a great deal of individual variation, like there is with everything in life.
Okay, what is it that makes this so bad for some?
Well, first of all, I think parents have spent a good deal of time parenting their child. And everyone is pretty used to the dynamics in the family and the structure, etc. And when all of a sudden you take one member out of the family, there's some amount of upheaval. When you add to that the developmental life changes that many parents are going through at this time, like menopause on the part of the mothers, sometimes retirement, depending on how old the parents are. And in today's day and age, many parents have waited to have children, so they may very well be going through retirement.
So we've actually both been through this. You've been
Yes.
through it twice.
That's
I've been
how
through
we
it
ended
once.
up. That's how I ended up being on your show. Is we did talk about it.
Yes, yes. And so, what was that like for you? And why I ask that is because somehow I think we are expected to be able to handle it a bit different because, after all, we know about the human mind and feelings and emotions. We know about developmental stages. So it seems like we should be able to handle this. So how well did you do?
Doesn't it seem that way? Well, I had one of the worst cases of empty nest syndrome that one could possibly imagine. I hope one of my children, either of my children, are not listening today. But in driving away from leaving my son at college, when I was a block away, I started sobbing. I sobbed for 8 hours in the car going back home. And instead of going home, I literally fell into the doorway of my best friend whose 3 children had already left for college. So she was like an expert, so to speak, just sobbing. My eyes were swollen shut. I swear to God. And for the whole week following, while I was driving to work, I would start sobbing again. I would have to pull over to the side of the road because I couldn't see through all the tears. And I'd call my best friend, "My life is over." And that was every day. Yeah. It was horrible. It was horrible. And you're absolutely right. I thought, I am a psychologist. I'm a child psychologist. I know about these things.
So having all of that experience to work with others, or the knowledge that you had, didn't really help to prepare you. And that's probably why you're here too, so that you can help to prepare others and to talk about this. That it's a very real experience. It can feel very bad, but here you are and you've actually survived it.
Pretty much.
Okay. Okay.
I still go through it, though. See, that's one of the things I was going to say today. Is it has a way of surprising you. It doesn't. When your children are coming back and forth, they're not gone forever. They're coming back and forth, and as a parent, every time they leave or I leave, I feel a mild form of this little pang of, I wish they were back at home.
Yeah.
So, but yes, if I can help one parent, and I do feel that I've talked to a lot of parents over the years, and I do feel I've had somewhat of an impact. And so it gives me a lot of pleasure if I can do that, because it was pretty awful.
Yeah, and I suppose I should share part of mine too, because once more, it is such a wrenching experience that we thought, my husband and I, that we would be fine, that we would be great, that we would send her off to a college, and we took her clear across the country, and we got her dorm room all prepped, and we thought this was, going to be great. We made reservations at the hotel to have a massage, and we were going to have this lovely evening. We were going to toast ourselves and say, job well done. Well,
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
I know. We said goodbye and we didn't cry doing it, but the car doors didn't close before both my husband and I were quietly sobbing, trying not to affect each other. We get to the hotel bar.
Best place to go.
Well, we got a glass of wine, and as I am sitting there, and as my tears are dripping into the wine glass, I look at my husband and I say, please don't take this the wrong way, but you have never looked so inadequate to me in my whole life. That I was going to be left just with him.
You told me that the first time we talked about this, and it's just as poignant and funny, because it is so true.
It is
there's
so
something about our children, particularly as mothers, I believe, although your husband had a tough time with it too, that really it's a ripping.
Yes. And what I found and what we started to talk about is that with her, we're family, and there's a lot going on. Without her, it felt like we were no longer a family. We were just a couple. And that's how it felt that first day, is that now that she's gone, we no longer can identify or feel that because she's left the nest.
Right.
Yeah. So I suppose we need to talk about, are there stages that we go through here, and how long does it really last? Because it is a journey that you go on as a parent, and we want to be able to help prepare all of the other parents out there to be able to go through this process. So is there kind of a set time or stages or how long it lasts?
I think stage is probably a bit strong, but there certainly tends to be what I would call a more acute phase of it when the child leaves home. For example, your son or daughter's off to college, and all of a sudden there you are. The house has changed. It may be empty, but there may be other children there. I can tell you a funny story myself about how that one, but as I said, it hit me when I was in the car. But really what happens is we go from some degree of intensity, and then it lessens as we get used to our nest being different, and we find a new equilibrium. But there is the real shocker that I said earlier, is it comes back in these sort of little waves. It's not like the tidal wave of early, but.
So both parents can go through it. The children can go through it. Children left at home can go through it. I even think the pets have to go through it too, because they have to make adjustments also.
Right.
So what should we be able to expect during this time? For me, I know there were feelings of being lonely sometimes. There was a bit of anxiety, wondering if she's going to be okay. There was also the mixed feelings of being very excited for her to have her new life and to go and to explore that.
That's part of what makes it so hard, I think.
The mixed feelings?
Yeah, and the fact that this is an enormous developmental milestone for our child, and we're both excited for them and wishing we could tie them to the bed. Yes. But we're all individuals, and so we all have different responses to our experiences, of course. Some parents, that I've talked to, feel a sense of, wow, this is really different. What do I do with myself now?
And all this time.
Right. And that's really a sense of needing to find a new stability and of figuring out our new role as parents. Because we also have to keep in mind that we haven't stopped being parents. This is I'm a developmentalist, so I'm always talking about development. This is a developmental process that we're going through too. So on the other side of the spectrum from the now, trying to find my, some parents go through a terrible sense of upheaval like I did, like You did. A horrible sadness, depression, or just feeling depressed rather than actual clinical depression. I was, I was one of those parents. But I don't think that everyone goes through it. I do think it's normal to have some type of reaction, however.
So even from what you're saying, it is true that even if you have your own career, your own life, that there are things going on for you, that you have a support system, is this easier or harder? I think what we're both saying and both found out is yes and no. What about for those parents who are the ones who hover, who are micromanaging? Because as somebody who also sees the students coming into college, what do you think about the parents who still are trying to call their kids' teachers to ask about grades or to ask why they can't get in a class?
I've been asked about that, about the helicopter parent is, I think, the term that we're using lately. I've been asked about that a lot. People asking, is that a good thing or a bad thing? But the parent who micromanages their kids, I don't think they necessarily have a more difficult time. They are in for a big surprise, however, in that if they intend to continue to hover, or as we say, be helicopter parents, all of a sudden they're going to come against a brick wall, in essence, in that the college believes that their son or daughter is an adult and that they are not going to talk to them in the same way that an elementary school teacher or elementary school advisor or high school advisor, et cetera, talk to them every time they picked up the phone. So that's kind of a big surprise. It was for me because, believe me, I tried that too. And here I'm in higher ed, right?
Right.
It'll be different for me. I'm in higher ed. They'll talk to me.
No, they didn't. Okay, we are going to take a quick break here, but we are going to be right back talking about the empty nest syndrome.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
We are talking about children leaving home, going off to college, and the empty nest syndrome. And I'm here with my guest, Dr. Nancy Leffert, and she is a developmental child psychologist. She is the president of Antioch, and she is a parent. So we've both had experience going through this, but we're offering you some help in how you too can go through this. So, Nancy, who do you think actually has a harder time, the parents or the child, when this happens?
I don't, this probably isn't very satisfying, but I don't know that I can say. What I can say pretty definitively is that everyone's going through something. And the adolescents can have a difficult time separating. And we have to keep that in mind, too. When they go off to college, a little of that is normal. But what's more typical is this wavering back and forth. And the wavering is hard for parents. So it's really important to expect it, because sometimes it looks like your son or daughter is very independent and may seem to want to have little connection with you. And even be irritated by your phone calls and your emails and now your text messages, or, the thing you had implanted in them so that you can follow them.
GPS?
Yes, GPS. And the next minute, you get the opposite. As parents, they're clinging, they're crying, can I come home?
Mm-hmm.
So as parents, the best thing we can do is to be responsive to their needs at the time, and to give them space when they clearly need it, and to be there appropriately when they come close again. I think I told you this before, that the biggest gift that was given to me when I fell into my friend's doorway on the way home from when my oldest went away to college and it's a gift I've taken with me. It worked, and I've told everyone I care about this. Mm-hmm. Don't call them. Mm-hmm. It's very hard. But what happens if you initiate the call is that they don't want to talk to you. You've caught them and they're in something. They may be in the bookstore, they may be in the coffee shop, they may be, well, who knows? what
Meeting
they're
a
doing.
new friend.
Meeting a new friend, and there's mom or dad on the phone. And then you are greeted with monosyllabic responses, which is very depressing for the parent.
And feels rejecting.
It does. So instead, if you don't call and, tie your hands behind your back so you don't call, they then call. They do call you. And when they call, they want to talk to you. And I drop everything when one of my children calls me. And you could talk to anyone in my office, any of our faculty, any of our staff, and they would tell you that is exactly what happens for me, even today. And my children are 36 and 33. But if they want to talk to me, I'm there. Yeah. It's really important. It's hard to do, but I've done it. Now they even say, you could call me now and again.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that was part of what my next question was going to be, is that what can parents do to help their children? Because the kids going off are also going to have their own insecurity, their own anxiety. And I think you answered this by just saying that the best thing to do is not to give in to their upset and their anxiety and to tell them to pack their bag and come home, but to really, at this point in time, be that really good parent that takes a big, deep breath, that even though you might want this, that you suck that up and you say, oh, honey, you are going to work your way through this. I believe in you. It's okay. And encourage them to stay. And,
exactly.
Okay.
Even though your instinct is to snuggle them.
Exactly, and to pull them back home. So what can parents do to prepare for this? Because it is going to come in everybody's life, whether they're going off to college or whether they're just going to go to work or whether they're going to move out to explore some other aspect of their life to grow up. How can parents prepare themselves, the kids, and the whole family for this?
The best preparation for our children is that we give our children graduated experiences with separation prior to their going off to college. And this is really important, and it begins in early life. We're talking about toddlers. Our children need to develop the ability to self-manage as well. So helicopter parents who sometimes inadvertently interfere with the development of self-management skills because they're doing the managing. So then all of a sudden we're sending our child off to college and we've really sort of left them adrift at that point if they don't have those skills. I think that in many respects independence starts very early, and that we're preparing for the moment that they leave us from, as I said, the time they're toddlers. The best thing we can do is to try not to overparent. Children and adolescents need to learn to manage themselves, as I said, and to do so with the appropriate level of responsibility for their age and maturity. They need to handle disappointments. That's part of life. Not everything turns out right. And as parents, we can't shield them from absolutely everything. On the other side of the spectrum, some parents go through a terrible sense of upheaval, and sadness, as I've explained. But we need to restrain ourselves from jumping in, as you mentioned, to help or to bring them back home. We need to allow them to succeed and to fail. And it's really the graduated exposure to stressors that provides our children with the strength and growth and independence that they're going to need for their future. Now, us, we're a whole nother problem.
But you are saying that this starts from a very early age and that parents need to be able to allow their kids to deal with frustration and not always just jump in, because this actually is what is going to be able to prepare them to deal with handling situations when their parents are not present.
Yes. In fact, we tend to think of this actually as an inoculation effect. If children are having a vaccination, it's a little bit of exposure to whatever the pathogen is. We're not making them sick, but inoculating them from getting really sick,
Mm-hmm.
but they're getting a little bit. So that's what I mean by graduated exposure to stressors. It's not going to harm them. It's good, actually, that children not get everything they ask for, that they, what we usually have called spoiling. But it truly is. These are developmental milestones, truly, to learn to manage yourself, your own anxiety, your frustration, etc.
Exactly. And as someone who sees these students come into a college, what are the characteristics or trait of those students who are prepared and are able to successfully manage these changes and to adapt to a new environment where they really have to take care of themselves?
Well, currently in my role at Antioch, of course, I see students in our undergraduate program who have already completed 1, 2, or 3 years of college before they come to us. So they've been through some extent of this. However, I've also seen the kids who really still can't manage frustration or, whatever the difficulty is. And you see that on the college campus, that, and it does come up, even in a non-residential campus, because then there are also the kids who are not leaving home, but maybe moving out, or they are living at home, but they're all of a sudden in college, and then that's a whole different animal too.
So there's a lot that parents can do to make their kids college ready, or at least ready to move away from home. Some of them are even as simple as making sure that the kids are doing chores at home so they have a sense of responsibility, learning how to do their own laundry.
Absolutely.
Would help.
It absolutely
Learning
does.
how to budget their checking account or the money that they do have, and really being able to prepare them to be on their own and to tolerate the frustration without always having to run home or assume that somebody else is going to come in to take care of that. Let's go back for just a moment in helping parents to prepare themselves, are there any other things that the couple needs to do, that mom and dad need to do for themselves, as far as being able to cope with some of the empty nest syndrome symptoms?
Yeah, I think that it's really important for couples to be sensitive to one another because it is a developmental point in the marriage or relationship also. Everybody's going through a developmental transition, which is a hard time in a family when everyone's going through something, including the siblings, as you said. And sometimes, you're going to see a dog mourning by laying on the child's bed all the time, or whatever. So it's important to reestablish your relationship as a couple, so that, for instance, in our case, that our husbands don't think, that we really do feel our life is over now that our child has left home. And to do things together and to try to find a new equilibrium. It really is a new equilibrium. I know that my husband and I discovered, well, of course, that wasn't really the case. We still had a child at home, by the way, when I was sobbing in the car. And his reaction after I'd been doing that for a week, he said to my husband, "Does she like this when I go to camp every summer?" And he said, "No, but she knows you're coming home."
Yeah, which makes all the difference in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
But it truly is being able to find out, well, gee, we don't have to eat dinner at the same time. We don't have to try to get everyone up and out of the house in the morning. I mean, there are all sorts of little family couple type things that change, and also find a new equilibrium, because it's not
Yes.
the same as when you were first together either.
That's right. That's right. And I think what helped me is to just think about that this stage is just one of many stages of being on that journey of being a parent. In that, yes, I no more knew what to do when this baby arrived in my life than I did when she left, but that you learn along the way, and that our job as parents is to successfully launch these children. And if we have been doing our job along the way, that we can trust and have some faith that things will eventually work out. And as you say, shift back into a new normal.
It really is that. I can't remember who said it, but it's something on the order of that our children that, we are, hold them close, but also to set them free.
And give them wings.
Yes, and give them wings. That's
Yes.
right. You said it better.
Yeah.
And, that's exactly what I wanted. I want my children to be successful on their own, to feel secure in themselves, to be happy in themselves, to go on and have their own families and lives. And yet I don't.
Okay.
It's truly ambivalence is what it is.
Yes, it is. We are going to come back and talk more about that. I'll be right back with my guest.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
I am here with my guest, Dr. Nancy Leffert, and we're talking about the empty nest. And I know that these empty nests, that there are some growing pains here, and I can remember them just like it was yesterday, just as I can remember labor pains. Neither one is for sissies. It takes a lot to be able to get through this. But what I do know is that some of the research now shows us that it isn't as bad today, perhaps, as it had been in the past. Can you really speak to that and how that has really changed, just in that maybe moms now at home have more things going on for them, so this isn't their sole source of identity?
Right. The majority of families today are two-income families. And so as a result, mom, who is often thought to be the one who's, goes through this most severely, and that's not always true. That's a bit of a stereotype, but just staying with that for a minute. So in days before most families having two incomes, mom was a homemaker, and her whole identity was around raising those children. And so they leave home, and there really is a major shift in who she is and finding that new self and what she's going to do with her time. Now, looking at my own experience, here I am. I'm sobbing that my life is over when I, have a full-time, job, a successful career, etc. So it's a little,
Exaggerated?
Well, yeah, but I guess, but it isn't like I didn't have things to fill my time, but it's the parenting part of my time.
Yeah.
And
and the loss of that we have to deal with.
That part of our parenting, because parenting's not over.
Right. And that probably is what keeps us all sane, right? That parenting is not over. And here's a question I have for you. These days, kids are also coming back home for some. I have some questions about what do you do when they come back for vacation? Because what I do know is that when my child went off to college, I didn't think about whether she got home at night. I didn't stay up at night waiting to get the call that said that she was safe in her bed and that she was fine so that I could be fine so that I could sleep. But I got to tell you, the second she's under my roof, I can't go to sleep. And she wants to go out with friends and have fun, and I'll ask her, when do you think you'll be home? And she'll tell me, and I'll go, well, okay, I guess I can stay up that late, because I know I am not going to sleep until I hear the car come in, the door close, and I know she's back and safe.
Even if you're in your bedroom pretending you're asleep, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's funny, because while they're at college, you are not, or at least trying not to think about what are they doing. But they also get used to a whole different way of doing things.
More independence.
And when they were living under your roof, at least in my roof, they had a curfew. I was expecting them home, even though I had great kids, but it wasn't like they were necessarily acting out all over the place, but I still had a curfew.
Yeah, because great kids come with boundaries.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Maybe we should talk about that someday.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden they come home, and first of all, there's this change college kids today are like vampires. They don't start going out for the evening until like 11 o'clock at night. Did you experience that?
Yes.
And so that's weird. And so you have to get used to we're not even starting the evening until 10 or 11. So what I think has to happen is you have to reestablish the fact that, okay, you're an adult, but, there are other people living in this house who maybe are going to be disturbed if you're coming in at 4 in the morning. And so it isn't so much as setting rules for them again and boundaries. It's really more that we all have to renegotiate being a family.
Right. Right. And I used to tell her that she just needed to come home early so that I could go to sleep rather than the other way around.
How did she take to that?
Actually, very, very well. She got it, and she was considerate, knowing that when she is in someone's home, when there are other people, that you need to consider how other people feel too.
Right.
So there are some positive aspects of letting go, of having the kids leave home. Some of them being that lots of parents these days are having their own personal growth spurts because they're getting back into their own interests, or maybe they're going back to school. They might even have better and improved relationships with their spouses because there's actually time for more couple time now rather than having to run out with all of the responsibilities of raising kids. What else are you finding as far as the positive aspects of this? Or, Nancy, have you found this yet?
Yes, I have. My children are now 36 and 33.
So it's time.
I even have a granddaughter now, so which is also an interesting of observations about that. We can maybe talk about that another time, but yes, there are positives. I mean, when we get over all of the feelings of that wrenching, that's what it felt like to me. A wrenching, a ripping of this bond that has existed since before they are born. It's an umbilical cord that is finally ripped. But the joy of seeing your child start to succeed and move into adult life really makes up for it all to see them be happy and successful. And again, remember, you just said a little while ago, that's what this was all about to begin with. We all had that goal when they were put into our arms for the first time. That was the goal. I'm gonna raise you, and I'm gonna send you off, and you're gonna be wonderful.
And that's probably one of the things you absolutely have to keep in mind, that this is a normal process, that the feelings that you're going to go through, for the most part, are going to be very, very normal. And you should let yourself go through them. You should feel them, to get support, to reach out to others, to probably talk to others who have gone through this, so that you can feel supported in the process that naturally happens within a family. But when should someone seek professional help? I mean, are there signs and symptoms, or when it really has gone on too long?
Absolutely. There isn't any definitive, this is how long it should go on or not. But if there's a great deal of, if the severity, even the kind of, I was talking about having a pretty severe reaction myself. But if it had gone on, that I was sobbing a month later in the same way, that would have meant that I really needed some help. This acute phase for me was a week, and I started to pull myself together then. It's sometimes we have to rely on a friend or a spouse to say, we're beyond normal. Or if we have any questions, we should seek out help just to ask if this is normal. But it could turn into, true clinical depression, panic attacks, things that really can be helped with either psychotherapy or medication or combination.
Yeah, I think the goal during this period of time is to process, to talk about it, to let all of your feelings out, to don't feel bad about that you're having negative thoughts about it, or that it's all part of the process. And if you can process that and not keep it inside and bottle it up, you're going to be so much better. You're going to work through the process a lot quicker.
And I also think, one of the things I've done with my friends who are going through this, because some of my friends are younger, I've said, please, if you're feeling badly, please call me. I've been through it. I'll listen, And so, for all your listeners who have been through this, to reach out to our friends, as well as reach out to a friend if you're going through this. Even, even before it gets to the point that you need professional help.
Now, did your children know what was happening to you back home, or did you not share that with them?
Well, my younger child sure knew because, I'm like in a puddle on the floor and he's kind of wondering what happened. My older son, my husband, I wasn't on the phone when I got back, and he called the night that I returned home because I took him myself, which was probably a mistake, but he called and to talk, and my husband said, I think your mom's having a little bit of a hard time. Would you talk to her? And and so we had a little chat, and I think he was feeling a little homesick too. His first night, and I think it kind of was nice for him to know that I just hadn't gone home and opened a bottle of champagne.
Right. And I think knowing that you can share those feelings, you can all be sad, but you can support each other through that was, I think, for our family, the most important thing. And we really left with our daughter that she's not out there all by herself, that we will always be here, that whatever she's going through, if she needs us, if she needs our help, we'll be there. And so whether it was going through this process together, I think that it helped her to know it's okay to have those mixed feelings.
Absolutely. And they aren't alone, and they're still your children.
They're still your children, and they always will be. Yeah. All right. Well, I would really like to thank you for coming in, for sharing your stories, for talking to us about this. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Hope so. I hope so. And thank you so much, Kim.
Yes.
I love talking about this because it's still good for me to talk about it.
Yes, and to still process,
Yes,
right?
Exactly. I'm not through.
All right. Nancy, thank you very much
You're
for being
welcome.
here. And what I will do is I will leave all of your contact info on my website should people want to contact you too.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. We'll be right back after the break.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
I want to thank Dr. Nancy Levert for joining me on the program today, and I will leave her contact on my website at drkimtaylorshow.com. Now, for all of you empty nesters out there is light at the end of the tunnel. Just know that learning to cope with the empty nest is just a part of the journey of being parents. And your job as parents is to prepare your children to leave home. So if you've done a good job as a parent, then you just have to trust that your child is prepared to go out on their own. And yes, a chapter does end, but another one begins. So be patient with each other and know that everyone is anxious and just trying to adjust to the changes ahead. Thank you for listening today. If you want to hear the program again, you can go to my website for the links to my iTunes channel to download the podcast or my YouTube channel. Just go to drkimtaylorshow.com. You can also listen to the rebroadcast right here at KZSB AM 1290, Thursday evenings at 10 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. So let's make this a place that every Thursday afternoon that we meet right here at 5 o'clock, and that you come to listen and or you come to share, to meet and talk about the issues that are going on in your life. So I'm here every Thursday afternoon. Meanwhile, have a great week, and until then, remember, nobody has to change in order for you to feel better. Take care, and I'll see you next week.